Hello Sharks, I am Jonathan Little of PokerCoaching.com, and today I want to have a discussion about the state of poker right now, mid-2021 if you're watching this in the future. We're going to make some predictions in this show. We're going to make some forecasts. You can come back and look at this in a year, 2 or 10 and see if I was right. Maybe I'll be right, maybe I'll be wrong. I will say that this video is going to be very much aimed at poker players who are trying to succeed at poker right now, who are trying to put in good volume, move up in stakes, and make a lot of money from poker. This video is not so aimed at the best world-class professionals who are going to have an edge in all games for the most part across the board. And it's also not aimed at very recreational players who play once a week for fun with their friends, because at that point you're just like playing for fun, right? If you're playing for purely fun, the video's not for you because you know you're probably not going to be the biggest winner in the game, and you don't really care about growing your bankroll. You just want to kind of have a hobby, right? But if you are trying to succeed at poker in mid-2021, this talk's for you. So first things first, tournaments are booming, especially some of the big major series. We see World Poker Tour tournaments with record fields. We see tournaments at the Venetian with record fields. They just, the other day, had a $10,000 buy-in tournament at the Wynn, which I don't know if they've ever had a $10 million, $10,000 buy-in tournament at the Wynn, but they met the guarantee no problem. And a lot of people look at this and think poker's having a new poker boom, right? Poker's going to go through the roof indefinitely. But while history does not repeat itself, it does rhyme, and I think we may be in for a downturn for a few reasons. Also, cash games, perfectly fine in most major casinos. Also fine in most local casinos where there's only one option. But if you look at some of the smaller poker rooms, some of the more medium-sized poker rooms, or when there's a lot of competition in a particular area, some of these cash game rooms are closing. Just the other day, Planet Hollywood announced that they are closing their poker room. I don't know if they're still going to have poker tournaments there. I kind of doubt it. But they had a big series every year for the last few years that had thousands of players. The setup at Planet Hollywood was a little bit odd. They had a poker room, but then they also had like a tournament area that was on the upstairs balcony. It was kind of like you were in the middle of a club. But they're going to use that space for other things. I think a tough thing for a lot of, not necessarily professional poker players, people who think about poker as a business, but, it's like recreational players, I guess is what it is. A lot of things they don't necessarily consider is that casinos don't really run poker tournaments because they make a ton of money. Sure, they make some money, but that 10 or 15 or 20% rake you pay really just roughly lets them break even. And also, don't forget that poker tournaments take a lot of space, right? And these casinos could be using that space for other things, like putting slot machines there. Turns out slot machines make a lot of money compared to poker. And the reason a lot of casinos run poker tournaments, a lot of the reasons a lot of casinos have poker rooms, is to get people into the casino. Imagine you have a couple. One of them likes to play slot machines, and the other one hates to play slot machines. If there's a casino that only has slot machines, maybe that couple doesn't go to the casino all that often, right? But if that couple, one of them likes slot machines, one of them likes poker, and there's a casino with slot machines and a poker room, now all of a sudden these people are going to the casino all the time. And also, whenever people have a big windfall of cash, like when you win a poker tournament, imagine you're playing a $500 buy-in tournament and you win $100,000. Well, a lot of the time, people will take that $100,000 and go do something else with it in the casino. Whether it be go shopping, go out to nice meals, go to the sports book, go to the roulette table, who knows what they're going to do with it. But some of that money is going to end up going back to the casino. So it's not just the rake that the casino makes off the individual poker tournaments or the individual cash game hands. It's that when people do have a big win, they often spend that in the casino. Well, some of it in the casino, sometimes all of it. Sometimes all of it plus some. So we have tournaments booming. We also have small and medium poker rooms closing. What's going on here? I think we've kind of reached the stage where there are very clear big winners in the poker room space, right? Like in Las Vegas, you have Aria, you have Bellagio, you have Venetian, and you have Wynn. I don't think any of the other poker rooms out there are doing exceptionally well. There's plenty that are doing fine. I'm sure some people here say, oh, I like going to Caesars or whatever. Sure, right? But it's not like those places are booming. So it's almost as if we are in this weird capitalistic stage where the small and medium players are just getting pushed to the side, right? Why would you go play in a small poker room when you could go play in a big poker room where you can have a wide selection of games, you can see and interact with world-class poker players, right? You can go to nice restaurants, have a good time. Right? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to go to other places, and that's resulting in some of these casinos closing. Also, though, why are the tournaments in particular booming? And the reason for that, I think, is because over the last year and a half, because of COVID, if you're watching this in the future, there's a thing called the COVID virus that happened that forced everybody to stay at home for about a year and a half, or roughly at home. Certainly some people did not stay at home, but most people, a lot of people, stayed at home. And they especially didn't travel, right? A lot of people who come to Las Vegas, in particular where I'm sitting right now, I'm sitting in the Aria, they come here to have a vacation and play some cards, right? So a lot of people have essentially had a year and a half to not spend money. Or if they spent money, it was way less than before. A lot of people just like didn't go on vacation for a year and a half. I mean, I'm in that same boat, right? I was looking to take a vacation with my wife recently, and the hotels around where I live in New York were like $1,500 a night for a hotel that was normally like, let's say, $400 per night just a year and a half ago. Why is that happening? Because the demand is through the roof. And the demand for poker tournaments right now is through the roof. Right now it's through the roof. So something else that's happened is that the U.S. government has printed a lot of dollars over the last year and a half as a stimulus package, right? Also, a lot of people have, I mean, to some extent gotten rich over the course of the COVID period, or they have made more money / saved more money than they would have if there was no COVID. For example, if you have a job where they let you work from home, you saved money on buying work clothes, on commuting, on eating out every day, whatever, right? Like all of this little bits of money add up. If you got stimulus package and you didn't really need it, that's just like found money to some extent. Now I realize there are plenty of people out there that COVID absolutely wrecked, and obviously that's unfortunate and terrible, and it's tough because we're in the stage where there are like very clear people who benefited off of the last year and a half and people who really did not benefit off the last year and a half, right? But anyway, some people did benefit substantially, and those people have extra money right now. So they haven't gone on vacation in a year and a half, and they have a whole lot of extra money. And US dollar's been devalued substantially, okay? So now we have these $10,000 buy-in poker tournaments like at the Win that are meeting the 1,000-person guarantee, which is kind of ridiculous, right? I think they had, I don't even know what they had, 1,200 entries, something like this. And you have to realize that $10,000 today is not $10,000 like it was even 2 years ago. It's more like a, I don't know, call it a $7,000 tournament, which is still big, but it's not quite a $10,000 tournament, right? Kind of like whenever the first World Series of Poker happened back in the 70s, they were playing a $10,000 buy-in main event. I think someone did the math. It was like $140,000 buy-in in today's money, right? $10,000 way back then was a ton of money. $10,000 today is, a good amount of money, but not a ton of money. So a lot of people have extra money. That money has essentially been devalued. So we see these kind of high-ish stakes tournaments not exactly being the same as they used to. And people want to go on vacation and have a party, right? Also, people have not been raked over the last year because they haven't been playing, right? I realize some people have been playing online, but for the most part, especially if you're in America, the games that you can play on the licensed sites and the illegal sites are all relatively small compared to the games people play live. For example, at Venetian the other day, they had an $800 buy-in tournament that I don't even know how many people it got, but it was like a lot of people in this $800 buy-in tournament. Had a 100,000 guarantee, and I think what did it have? 400,000 guarantee? I don't know what it was. It was a big tournament, right? For $800. Most people are not playing $800 buy-in online tournaments, right? They're playing $50 online tournaments. And it turns out most people out there, especially if you have a decent job and you're getting stimulus money and all of this, if you lose, I don't know, let's say $300 per week on average playing poker, yeah, it's a decent amount of money. You'd rather not do it, but it's not like detrimental, right? Whereas when you come to play these $800 buy-in live tournaments, if you lose, well, let's say you go to Vegas for a long weekend and you're going to play 3 or 4 of them and you're going to re-enter a time or two. Now we're looking at something like $2,400, $4,000, right? Most people cannot afford to lose $4,000 even on their vacation, even if they have stockpiled a little bit of money, right? And if they do, if they can't afford losing $4,000 on their gambling expense, which is often the result when you're playing poker tournaments, then they can't do it all that often. They can do it once, maybe twice, but then after that, they're kind of done. And you got to realize that there is a lot of variance in tournament poker. A lot of people don't fully recognize this. When you go and you play 3 or 4 or 5 buy-ins of live poker tournaments, you're probably going to get 0 cashes. Just how it goes. And then when you do get a cash, usually it's going to be one minimum cash for, let's say it's an $800 tournament for, call it $1,200 bucks. So you're going to put in 4,000, you're going to get back 1,200. That is normal and the expected result. Now, obviously, you're going to have big wins every once in a while, but that doesn't happen all that often. And especially in these big field tournaments like we are seeing in WPTs, Venetian, Win, whatever, whenever you do have a win, it's going to be gigantic, but you get that gigantic win almost never. And that's important to realize. Most people who are trying to move up at poker, they have a reasonable bankroll. They just can't go around losing $4,000 every month or two and they decide to take a slightly bigger than average gambling excursion to Las Vegas. And the recreational players who are just going for fun certainly cannot afford that, right? And that's going to result in them stopping the activity of going to Vegas and playing big poker tournaments or going anywhere and playing big poker tournaments because losing is not fun. Remember, these players have not lost, actually, over the last year and a half because they haven't been able to play. And they're going to quit. That's what it amounts to. Whenever people lose over and over and over and over again, they quit. And people have not experienced that over the last year and a half. I realize a lot of us have lost in life, but they haven't really lost so much at the live poker table. Another thing is that when people do something over and over, they eventually get bored with it, especially if they're not doing it professionally, right? A lot of recreational players, they want to go take a shot at a poker tournament. They do it one time, okay. They do it another time, okay. If they haven't had some big win, third or fourth time, they're probably just going to stop playing. And that's going to result in these big fields slowly declining. Failed to mention all the big tournaments in Florida. Tournaments in Florida are absolutely booming, right? Tournaments everywhere are booming. They really are. So I mentioned we haven't been raked for a while, right? Meaning every time you play a poker tournament, the casino takes something like third or fourth place money out of the field. Think about that, right? You play a tournament with 1,000 people. Casino takes third or fourth place money. Let's say third place money is, gosh, I don't even know. Who knows what? It doesn't even make a difference. Imagine what third place is in your local tournament or in a big tournament. That's what the casino's taking home. And when that money gets taken away from the poker field, inevitably, people feel that, right? You don't necessarily think of it and feel too bad when you pay the buy-in, but that does impact you at the end of the day. And it impacts the prize pools, and that results in people losing money because the casino's taking it, right? And again, I have no problem with the casino charging a fee to let people play the game. They put on the game, right? They run the game, they keep the game secure, et cetera, et cetera. Also, one more thing that has not happened over the last year and a half is none of the unlicensed, illegal, unregulated gambling sites have closed in America. Sirens are going off. Maybe this is a touchy topic. You guys hear that? Before COVID, it seemed like every year, give or take, one of the illegal gambling sites would inevitably implode and sometimes pay back people's money, sometimes not. When they did not pay back people's money, it was detrimental to all the players who played on that sites. That just hasn't happened since COVID, and very logical reason for why this has not happened is because, well, they're flush with money, right? All the people were stuck at home playing on these online poker sites, and they were absolutely booming. If any poker site went broke during COVID, an online poker site went broke during COVID, they probably weren't doing it quite right. So understand that bad thing has not happened. Really, nothing bad has happened to the players in quite a long time. So, people get it in their minds that this type of activity where everything's just going fine and good is going to happen indefinitely. But, like all markets, there are booms and busts. Sometimes you're going up, sometimes you're going down. Typically, after you go up, like the poker economy has over the last 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 months, it does have to go down at some point because, especially in poker, where the casino is raking money, and the bad players are playing just every once in a while, and they're going to lose and then quit, the games are going to dry up very quickly at some point. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I have to imagine over the next year, the games are going to go from being like really soft right now to really not soft. Just recently, I purposely came out to play the $10,000 to $50,000 buy-in tournaments at the U.S. Poker Open, right? And these are games that are at the top of my average buy-in, right? I don't want to be playing too much bigger than $50,000 buy-in tournaments because I'm not properly bankrolled for it, right? But I fully expected these games to be abnormally soft. And I was right. Why did I expect them to be soft? All the reasons we outlined before, right? Essentially, some people who were like kind of rich got really rich through COVID. Also, some people who have not taken a vacation in a long time are going to come to Vegas and play. And that's going to result in all the pros being there, but also proportionally more recreational players. And that's going to result in the game being very good. They're having another tournament series. It starts actually in a few days here at the Poker Go Studios. And I'm not going to play it because I have other things in life going on. If I had nothing going on, I would go play it. But I expect this series, just 2 weeks after the previous series, to be substantially tougher. Not a little bit tougher, but substantially tougher. Why? Because burnout happens. Life happens, right? People who just played 2 or 3 weeks of $10,000 to $50,000 buy-in tournaments, if they're a recreational player, meaning the people that the professionals, the people who are trying to beat the games, are winning from, they're going to go do something else, right? They have to go back and work. They got to go get some more money. And that's going to result in those players not being in the field, which is going to result in the games being substantially tougher. So you have to be aware of that type of thing. You have to realize that whenever you play poker, your money has to come from somewhere. Great example of this is during the $10,000 US Poker Open tournament recently. You could re-enter, I think, 2 times. Fortunately, I didn't have to re-enter all that often. That's good. Make sure you check out my video blog here at youtube.com/pokercoaching, where I discussed it. I discussed the whole thing. Anyway, there was one day where I busted kind of near the end of the re-entry period, and I looked around the field. Field was soft. There were a few very clearly recreational players in the field. Let's say there are 50 players left, and 8 of them are, in my mind, very recreational players. Happy to re-enter, no problem, right? Another day, though, I busted at roughly the same time. I looked around the field, and there were no recreational players in the field. Why? Because they'd already busted, and they were out. So we re-entered the first time, no problem, happily. Second time, you know what I did? I didn't re-enter. You have to realize that if you are playing poker to try to make money and you're trying to move up, I would love to be able to move up from the $50,000 buy-in tournaments to the $100,000 tournaments, right? That would be great. I'm in the everybody, for the most part, if they're playing poker a lot and they're playing poker very seriously, are trying to move up to some extent. And you have to realize that if there's no money to be won and you still play, you're just paying the rake and breaking even. And then you're just going to experience lots and lots of variance for little to no gain. And you don't want that. At the end of the day, I think most poker professionals don't want to be flipping coins. I know you see a lot of people doing credit card roulette and flipping coins for fun. I mean, I've done that plenty of time in my past as a young, dumb kid, but that's not really what you want. You just want to have a nice, steady upwards graph. And you get that by finding a game you can beat, which I don't think I'm going to beat a $10,000 buy-in tournament with no recreational players and all pros. I don't think very many people in the field have much of a return on investment there. So that's not a game I can beat. So there you go. Don't play it. So you have to find a game you can beat. Then you have to play it a lot, right? Whenever I go to play poker, I try to put in a lot of volume. When I play online poker, I try to play a ton of games, right? And that's because I want to put in a lot of volume, because at the end of the day, if you put in a lot of volume, instead of having a graph that's like all over the place like this, your graph will just slowly trickle up because you get to put in a lot of volume. So find a game you can beat, play it a lot, and keep a proper bankroll. You have to make sure you are adequately bankrolled for the game you are playing. Most people do not fully understand the bankroll you actually need to play most games. Live poker players tend to underestimate it, especially for tournaments. For cash games, if you have a big edge, you don't actually need all of that many buy-ins, maybe 20, 30, 40 buy-ins, 100 big blind buy-ins. Obviously, sometimes people buy in more or less. Search my YouTube channel. Search my site, pokercoaching.com. I'm very sure we have some videos on bankroll requirements, bankroll management, etc. Well, we're not going to get into that today, but tournaments have a lot of variance. And I think something a lot of people don't fully understand is that as the tournament has more and more players in it, even if your return on investment is higher because there are more bad players in the tournament, you need a much, much, much bigger bankroll, to the point that, with a relatively small field tournament, you may need only 100 buy-ins if you have a decent edge. But in a big field tournament, like these tournaments that are going off with 1,000 people, you may need 300, 400, 500 buy-ins, assuming you're a good, strong winning poker player. And if you're not a good, strong winning poker player, and these games are bigger than the games you are typically playing, you may I mean, I don't know how, you could need 1,000 buy-ins for all I know. What a lot of people do, even a lot of like people trying to move up and who are pretty good at poker, is they crush their local games pretty hard. They beat their local $200 buy-in tournaments, no problem, and they win, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000 a year. Okay? Good. What they do with that money, though, is instead of just keeping it in the bankroll and playing slightly bigger games locally, they go on random trips to Las Vegas, South Florida, LA, whatever, and they play whatever the big buy-in tournaments are. They go and they play these $3,500 buy-in tournaments or $1,000 buy-in tournaments, $1,500 tournaments, whatever. And now they go from playing something like $200 average buy-in game to $1,500 buy-in games or $3,500 buy-in games. And that just jacks variance through the roof. Also, you're playing games where your edge is going to be presumably much smaller than it would be in your local games because you're playing against people who are often more accustomed to playing $3,500 buy-in tournaments. And even if the field is a lot of people kind of like you, there's also a lot of pros thrown into the field as well. So instead of there being almost no pros in your local $200 buy-in tournament, now there's going to be 40% of the field being like good, strong pros, and that's going to result in your win rate just naturally being way, way lower. So there's more players in the field, so variance goes through the roof, meaning very rarely you're going to have any sort of reasonable return. And then the games are going to be tougher. And that's a recipe for disaster. But that is what a lot of people incorrectly do. Also, when you travel to play poker, it's expensive. Think about how much it costs to come to Las Vegas. Let's say you're going to go stay at the Wynn. Or you're going to play poker at the Wynn. Even if you don't stay at the Wynn, you're probably going to end up paying $100 per night for a hotel room. I looked up hotel room prices in Vegas right now. There's something like $300 per night for any of the nice places. Let's say you're going to pay $100 per night and you're going to go for, I don't know, 2 weeks, 14 days. That's $1,400. You also have to get an airplane. You have to get a seat on an airplane. That costs $300 or $400, $500, whatever it is. You also have to buy food. Food at the Wynn is going to cost more money than food where you live most likely, right? So that's an extra $30, $40 per day. You add all this stuff up, it comes up to, I don't know, $2,500, $2,000 to go and play this poker tournament series. So you're just losing $2,000 right off the top. And so let's say you're going to be playing a bunch of, let's keep it easy, a bunch of $500 buy-in tournaments. And let's say you're going to make, let's say you're good. Let's say you're going to make 30% return on investment, $150 per game. Okay? So you're going to play 14 games. Let me get my calculator here. Let's say you're going to play 14 games. Where's that handy dandy calculator? 14 times $150 per game is $2,100. Right? So you make $2,100 on that trip. On average. You may say, but I play cash games on the side, or I do whatever. Whatever, you know, you can account for this. But I just told you it's going to cost you $2,000 to go play the tournament series. And you're going to make $2,100 back. That means you make a whopping $100 over the course of 2 weeks. Traveling's expensive. I have a video on Travel Rake. Check it out here on YouTube. And you have to account for it. Travel Rake is incredibly costly, and as people travel to play, that's kind of just another form of rake, right? Remember how I mentioned people have not been raked in a while by the casino? Well, they also haven't been raked by the places they travel to, right? And I realize, again, people like to go to Las Vegas or to any of the other fun poker destinations. They have a party, they have fun, it's a great time, I get it. But you have to ask, what am I really trying to accomplish? If you're really, really trying to accomplish becoming a good, strong poker player and protecting your bankroll and growing it in a way that will result in you basically never going broke, and you'll have a lot of great opportunities in the future, you should just keep playing slightly bigger games locally because it costs you nothing to travel there, and you're going to have an edge in the games, right? And usually the fields are going to be a little bit smaller, which leads to lower variance. All of those things are very good if you were trying to actually become a good, strong, winning poker player long term. Because you stay in action. Turns out there's a lot of value in staying in action. All right. So anyway, this poker boom over the last few months has essentially resulted in a lot of people playing in games that they have no business in playing, right? Because if you're a $200 tournament player, you really shouldn't be playing $1,000 buy-in tournaments because you don't have an edge. When I say shouldn't be playing, I mean assuming you're trying to make money. The players in the $200 games probably aren't beating $1,500 games. If they are, it's not for a whole lot. To the point that you would rather not experience the variance and just keep playing the $200 games. So what's going to happen, though, in all forms of things that create adrenaline, is that some of these people are going to be unwilling to move back down. And that's where you run into problem gambling is what it amounts to. Something that's not talked about too much in the poker space. To be fair, I don't know. Certainly not a psychologist, psychiatrist, But I don't see people talking about problem gambling in the poker space all that much. I know a lot of people see it and experience it when you're playing smaller stakes games. And the high stakes games, I don't think you see it all that often because usually people who are playing $10,000 buy-in tournaments aren't playing for all their money. They just have loads of money, right? But I think in like the 100, 200, 300, now the 1,000, now the $1,500 buy-in games, a lot of people are taking their stimulus money, playing a poker tournament with it, losing, and then thinking, I got unlucky. Let me try it again. Let me take $1,500 out of my kid's college savings fund and try. Oh, they do that. They lose. Oh, that was unlucky. Let me try again. Next thing you know, people who make $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 per year are losing $1,500 tournament bullets 12 times per year, 15 times per year, every time they have an opportunity. They're also traveling a lot more. All of this stuff results in them becoming degenerates, essentially. So you want to make sure that that does not happen to you. It is a detrimental problem to become a degenerate gambler. And this is going to sound bad, but a lot of people in the poker space don't really care about that because they realize, hey, if you're a degenerate playing way too high, that's good for me, the pro. But you have to realize, I, Jonathan Little, am not trying to win as much money as I possibly can from poker. I'm trying to help as many people as I can get good at poker, enjoy poker, make the most of poker, right? And I don't want anyone who follows me to fall into degenerate gambling. It's absolutely detrimental. And I want all of you to succeed and be happy at life is what it amounts to. And poker certainly can be part of a happy, enjoyable life. But not if you're losing all your money, all your family's money, all of your retirement money, whatever. Don't do that. Do not do that. I've seen it happening. Some people who are, let's say, basically retired. Let's say they're something like 60 years old. They have, I don't know, $1 million set aside for retirement that should last them the rest of their life, they think. But I see them ponying it up and playing $3,500 buy-in poker tournaments. And I know if they're winning, it's not much. These people are, to some extent, gambling with their retirement money. And, sometimes it'll work, but a lot of times it won't. And you have to be very, very protective of your bankroll, let's call it. Once your bankroll, your retirement fund, gets very big, and $1 million is a lot of money. And the thing is that some people will say, oh, I'm just going to take a shot. If it doesn't go well, I'll quit. Sure. But for some people, that's not what's going to happen. They're going to take a shot. They're going to lose. Then the win's going to have a $10,000 buy-in tournament. Let's go take a shot at that. They go play that. They lose. Oh, there's a WPT of Venetian the next day. Let's go play that. They lose. Next thing you know, they're out $40,000, $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 out of their $1 million retirement fund. And then some of them don't quit. They just keep going. They keep going and going and going. Next thing you know, they have no money. I know that may sound extreme. I know a lot of people think, oh, that would never happen to me. I've seen it happen. And I don't want that for any of you. So recognize that, right? Something else I've seen happening is some of the big winners, people who are good at poker, strong winning poker players, they are spending as if these, I think, abnormal gains from poker are going to continue happening indefinitely. And they're not. Back, I don't know, it must have been a decade ago, poker was booming. Some of the players were winning like $1 million in poker tournaments, like I did back 10 years ago, right? And some people were going into like buying giant penthouses. I'm looking right over here at Panorama condominiums right outside this window here. And a lot of people bought apartments in that thing for $500,000, $1 million, $1.5 million. Then the economy went down. Now it's worth $250K. They flip it. They lose $250K on the deal. They don't have a condo anymore, etc. Right? They were buying this expensive asset. To be fair, look, nothing wrong with investing in assets, etc. But do you really need $1.5 million apartment if you are a 30-year-old single person? Probably not, right? Probably not. Do you really need to be flying first class and going on 2-week vacations to $1,000 a night places? I know this is not what a lot of people do, but it is what some of the biggest winners are doing. And the answer is probably not. And I know it may sound like I'm saying don't spend your money or don't enjoy your successes, but I'm not saying that at all, right? I'm saying that you have to make sure that you are protected for the inevitable the inevitable down swings that will happen from poker. It is going to happen. I have had big upswings and big downswings. If you ask anybody else who's been in this industry for, when did I get into this? 2003? 18 years, they have all had big upswings and downswings. And you want to make sure that you are not, well, way less off during your downswings because you have spent a pile of money on what's kind of nonsense, right? Also, the tough thing about investing in property is that you can't really sell it quickly, right? So let's say you do have $1 million score and you buy an apartment for $750,000 or a house for 750K. You have 250K left. That should be fine, right? Turns out sometimes not. This happened to me a long time ago. I had something like, I don't know, call it $150,000, and I put $100,000 down on a condominium, and promptly went on a $40,000 downswing. I was left with $10,000. It's not where you want to be. It was very stressful back then. And sure, you could always sell the condominium, but that's a big pain. You end up paying fees left and right, and it's a disaster. So you want to make sure that you are essentially trying your best to always stay somewhat flush with cash. And I know a lot of people, I'm seeing it at the high stakes games, they have a big problem with having cash in their pocket. They got to spend it. They either got to gamble it on something, invest it on something, spend it on something, and that is not ideal. You need to keep it ideally in somewhat liquid assets that hopefully can give you some sort of return if you have a load of money. But don't spend as if you're super rich. Something my first poker coach a long time ago, Bill Seymour, told me, which, was maybe a little bit too passive, but it was essentially, look at your win rate over a long period of time, whatever it is, like as much as you have, and assume you win half that much. So back then I was winning $200 per hour, okay? Let's say $200 per hour in sit and goes on the internet, back on Party Poker a long time ago. Shout out to Party Poker. Okay, fine, we're winning $200 an hour. He said, just assume, for all practical purposes, you actually make 100. Because you could have been running hot. The games may get tougher. Right? All those things could happen. Fine. Then, spend as if you make about half that much. Spend as if you make $50 per hour. That way, even if you got your edge completely off by 50%, right? And games get tougher, things go poorly, go in a big downswing, whatever, you'll still be fine because you're basically just not spending a lot of money. And if you don't spend a lot of money, then your bankroll is just going to go through the roof. It has to, assuming you're finding a game you can beat, you're playing these games you can beat, you're playing them a lot, and you're keeping a proper bankroll. There's like, you must win. And the problem a lot of people run into is when they do start winning, they start spending as if their, $200 win rate is what it actually is and what it is actually going to be indefinitely. And it's not. All games, for the most part, unless there's some weird anomaly, get tougher over time. Okay? And you need to prepare for that. Sit and goes were a great example. Back in the day, I was winning many hundreds of dollars per hour playing sit and goes, playing 16 tables at a time, all day, every day. A few years later, that game was dead. Why? Because it actually wasn't that tough of a game, and people figured it out to the point that everybody was losing the rake. And, that took away my multiple $100 per hour win rate that I could just, do sitting at home whenever I felt like it. And if I knew what I knew today, I would have been playing a whole lot more. I would have been stockpiling a whole lot more money. And that would have given me a better chance for success in the future. I still ended up fine, right? But I was doing this stuff already to some extent. Maybe Bill Seymour actually should change it to assume you make 40% or 30% of what your actual win rate is, and spend as if you, then spend as if you're making like 30 or 40% of that. That way, you just always have a load of money. Again, I'm not saying to not spend your money on things you enjoy. I'm saying you certainly should enjoy your life and do the things you want. But at the end of the day, if your goal is to build a bankroll, move up in stakes, and give yourself a chance to make long-term life-changing money from poker, then sometimes you have to give up a little bit now to ensure or give yourself a much better shot of success in the future. Let's see. All this is to say, you need to protect yourself from immense downside risk if you are trying to become a good, strong, winning poker player. And the big downside risk is that you could go broke. Of course, there's other downside risks of, you becoming a degenerate gambler, which I guess will result in you being broke, or you get on drugs or whatever, or you don't sleep and you wreck your brain. I don't know. There are other downside risks, but we're mainly talking about bankroll type stuff here. And you want to make sure that you are in the game long term. A lot of people look at poker as a get-rich-quick scheme. And, while some people do get rich from poker, a lot of people inevitably don't. But a lot of the people who succeed long term get rich slowly. I got rich slowly. Took time. A lot of people are in a rush. Humans are awful. Absolutely awful at being patient. They're absolutely awful at sitting on the sideline when they think they should be playing. Now, this is not to say that you should not be playing poker, but you need to be selective with your play because you have to find a game you can beat, right? And that doesn't mean for a tiny edge. Ideally, that means for a decent edge, right? Go back to that $10,000 example I gave earlier where I just didn't re-enter in a spot where I literally flew across the country to play, and I just didn't play. It takes some level of discipline, but at the same time, like, you just got to realize, what am I doing here? Am I trying to just gamble, or am I trying to make some money? I'm trying to make some money. I'm not trying to gamble. Next, you have to be able to adequately assess your skill level. In these times where the games are soft, people are flush with cash, most people who are good at poker have seen their win rates go up. Online, I've been crushing it. I've played a little bit live. I've been crushing it. Does that mean I'm just all of a sudden the best poker player in the world? No. I fully realize this, right? Because everybody who's good is crushing it. And that does not mean that we're going to have that win rate in the future. Let's just say, for example, I've had, 50% return on investment in tournaments, in high-stakes tournaments online and live recently. Does that mean I'm going to have that going forward? Obviously, no. It's going to revert back to, in the high-stakes games, 5%, 10%. So you have to be reasonable and actually assess your skill level so that you know the games you should be playing. You also have to assess your risk tolerance, right? Whenever you're playing these 1,000-person tournaments, you're going to have a lot of risk. You're going to have a lot of variance. And if you're not cool with that, then you need to be playing a different game. And while a lot of people, I think, say they're cool with it or think they are cool with it, a lot of people are not cool with it. They do not want to go and play a tournament series for 2 weeks, have 1 or 2 cashes, and lose a bunch of money. But that's what happens to, 95% of the people who go to play those poker tournaments. You have to be willing to pass on playing poker tournaments. I know every or most local casino out there has some major tournament series that happens once or twice a year, right? And everybody plays it. If they have a $1,000 tournament locally where you live, and they normally have $200 tournaments at that casino, almost everyone who plays those $200 tournaments plays that $1,000 buy-in tournament. You have to ask yourself, why? If it's the same field, just bigger money, and you're properly bankrolled for $200 games, but not $1,000 games, do you really want to play this one sporadic game? You may say, well, it's a lot softer than normal, or they satellite in a lot of players. Whatever. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. But you have to be able to assess your skill level and realize that, do we need this? You also have to be willing to not buy into the hype. There's a lot of hype in the poker world where the media, poker players, etc., are hyping up various poker tournaments, poker series, poker sites. Sometimes they're paid for it, sometimes they're not paid for it. You have to be able to look through all of that and ask, what is best for me? Because at the end of the day, there aren't a whole lot of people looking out for your best interest. I do my best to look out for your best interest because I am paid by my students to help my students succeed at poker. But if you look at every other player in the poker space, whether it be other good professionals, if I'm being I'm not going to call it predatory poker pro, but imagine if I'm a poker pro who's trying to win money from bad players. I want bad players in my game because that's where I would make money, right? Therefore, I want the recreational players or the weaker players. Let's say I'm a $10,000 player normally. That's where I have a reasonable edge. I want all the $1,000 players playing in my game, right? Because I'm going to crush them because I'm just better than them, right? It's how it works. So they're going to try to get you in that game. Poker sites want you in the game. Casinos want you in the game. Why? Because they make more rake money. They are going to sometimes also capitalize on the fact that you're going to win and then go buy a nice watch in the store or go to dinner or become a degenerate gambler in the pit, right? So all these people are trying to get your money. And you need to be able to see through all of the, I was going to say BS. It's not necessarily BS, but you need to be able to see through what they're doing and realize that they're trying to extract money from you. And you need to be able to look out for yourself. And like I said, I do my best to try to protect all of my students, all of my sharks out here from immense downside risk. But you need to really be looking out for yourself as well. Also, your friends, your poker friends may also try to get you to play the game, right? I mean, it's just like peer pressure to some extent if you think about it. Say they have that $1,000 game locally where you expect to break even in it. Yeah, why not go gamble? All your friends are playing. You're really going to be the one to sit on the sideline? That takes courage, lack of caring about social norms, whatever, to say, no, don't think it makes sense. Sometimes hard to do, right? But That's what you have to do if you want to succeed at poker, right? I mean, this goes back to like cash game players who win at 1-2 no limit, they win at 1-3 no limit, they move up to 2-5, they play, they lose. All right. They took their shot. Should they move back down to 1-3? And the answer is yeah, obviously. But a lot of people don't because they feel immense shame, embarrassment, whatever, because when they go back to play 1-3, the people around them know they tried to go play 2-5 and they failed. Nobody likes looking like a failure. They would rather sacrifice long-term profitability and their whole bankroll continuing to play 2-5 against players they can't really beat instead of feeling whatever embarrassment it is that people feel whenever they have to move down. We have to be okay with that. You must accept that and realize that you got to look out for yourself, and your ego is very often your enemy. And you have to not really worry about that kind of thing. So if all your friends are playing a $1,000 tournament, they're telling you to play a $1,000 tournament, yeah, the game may be like a little bit soft, but that does not fit with your risk tolerance. You have to pass up on it. It's okay. It's okay to not play every game. One time, I flew to Los Angeles to play the LA Poker Classic. They have a $10,000 main event. The day before, they were going to have a $5,000 tournament. I assumed it was going to be great. I show up. I look at the tournament. It has about 60 players in it, and they're all very, very good. No bad players in the whole field. I literally just flew across the country to play 2 tournaments, and now one of them looks bad. So what do? Do we play? You should already know the answer to this. The answer is no. No. Why would I possibly play in a tournament where I'm not going to make any money? Do I really want to sit around all day playing cards to make no money? The thing is, again, though, realize I, Jonathan Little, am not playing poker to pass the time or as a hobby. I'm playing to try to make money, as a lot of people out there who this video is for. You're trying to make money. So what did I do? Well, I looked at the cash games, and turns out I think it was 25-50 no limit game was super soft, and I won some decent amount of money, like $10,000, $15,000, whatever it was on the day. Super lucky. Obviously, I could have lost as well, but those games were super soft. Why? Because all the pros, or most of the pros, are playing in that $5,000 tournament for literally no reason, right? All this is to say, you have to be selective with your play, and as the poker space reverts more to normal, as the very recreational players are going to stop taking their vacations to play these big series, as the tournament fields decrease, as people get raked away for the next year, the games are going to get tougher, and you should not expect to have, if you've been having a good win rate recently, you should probably not expect that to stay quite as good, and you have to protect yourself. Protect yourself before you wreck yourself. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, click like, click subscribe, click the notification bell. It's a weird video, a little bit of different video. Probably no one made it to the end. If you made it to the end, hashtag protect yourself before you wreck yourself in the comments below. Good luck in your games. Have fun. Make the most of your experience. And stay safe. Thanks for watching. Hello there. Yeah, I'm talking to you. You want me to let you in on one little secret to take your poker skills to the next level? All you have to do is click the subscribe button right here. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice.